What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight podcast powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. People getting back to real life here. Vacation is done to a certain degree because still feels like we're on a run here, on a dream vacation with the Canes continuing to move through the college football playoff. We will continue to talk Ole Miss every which way. Got a ton of guests this week, and break down the game every way we can. This is I don't want to say once in a lifetime because it's something we hope to get used to, but for a lot of people, it is their first time in their lifetime. People in their 30s seeing this kind of run. So excited to break it down and continue to break it down because it is a very, very interesting matchup with a team that is fundamentally different from the Miami Hurricanes of 2025. So that's the Ole Miss game. The portal continues to rock and roll, both for Miami and other teams. We will break down Miami's portal flirtations, visits, potential targets, as well as a lot of portal movement going on outside of Miami, because really when you follow the portal, you follow college football and you understand what's going to happen in the season to come. So we're going to really break that down so you guys are up to date. There was a flurry. Portal opened on January 2nd. There was a ton of commitments yesterday and over the weekend. So we'll break those down for you. And then we will lead off with some injury talk with the Canes. First, I want to talk about some folks. They're not jumping in the portal anytime soon. They're there for you. That's Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in.
D, good morning.
Morning, man. How we feeling?
Feeling good, man. We had that show late last night on the QB stuff, and obviously we'll naturally talk some quarterback here on today's show. But I think we have a lot of other things to talk about. So if you guys haven't caught that episode, for sure go check that out. I mean, it was right before Sorsby officially became official there. But I listen. I think a lot of questions that people might have on the QB search, we try to sift through everything, and we're going to continue to do that here. But we got football to play this week. We had a couple practices here over the weekend as the team gets ready to leave to Arizona today. So they'll be out there all week, Monday through Friday, similarly to how they operated with the Dallas situation. It's almost like a bowl game, right? It's the with all the outside stuff. I know you were out there in Dallas, so you got a feel for what was going on. Everything's kind of themed towards the game. It's not just, we can say it's another game, but it's not just another game. And they'll have to go through those antics again this week here in Phoenix, Scottsdale, games in Glendale. But excited for this week, man.
It's gonna be fun, man. Unless you're one of your home away from homes, I feel you.
That's my favorite place. That's my favorite. Besides Coral Gables, Florida, Scottsdale is my favorite place, man. When I was an agent, I was going out there a lot. Shout out to my guy Donovan West from Arizona State, and I was out there a decent amount, man. It was a wonderful place. I hope to make new memories there this week.
Yeah, those are your spots: Arizona, Alabama, and Houston. Obviously, for Miami, Fiesta Bowl has been a tough one, 0-4. So they're looking to change history. They've changed a lot of things, righted a lot of wrongs. Last week, Ohio State taking care of that trauma by bludgeoning the Ohio State Buckeyes. Obviously, all the rivals were taken care of. November was taken care of with the finish that Miami had. So a lot of wrongs have been righted. I think this is a big one here with the Fiesta Bowl. And forget history. This is a chance to go to the championship game in Miami Gardens, Florida, and potentially win number 6. So you got to win this game. Forget history, but of course, there's a lot of history baked into this one. Let's talk present, Pete, which is the injury situation to Mari Brown, O.J. Frederick. I thought O.J. Frederick looked phenomenal in the game against Ohio State. Left on an island with Jeremiah Smith, left on an island with Cardell Tate. He was sticking to guys. Even the play where he got hurt, where Jeremiah Smith actually caught it, it was really good coverage by O.J. Frederick. Somewhat of a sophomore slump. A lot of injuries, I think more to do with that than anything. He's just been out. but he's someone I still believe is that guy we saw as a freshman All-America, one of the best cover corners in the country, hugely important. Of course, Damari Brown, with his size, physicality, having a really, really good year. He's been out for a few games, but somebody that was playing very, very well for Miami before he went down.
Yeah, and I think with OJ, man, he had a primetime performance when there were a lot of people who have, I think, unrightly kind of questioned him. I compare it to offensive linemen, right? You can have you can play 40, 50 snaps in a game and be flawless in 48, 49 of those snaps, and you have a penalty or you get beat downfield, and it's almost like in the fans' eyes that's negated. And obviously you want to reduce those moments when you're a cornerback like OJ Frederick. But we saw him have a phenomenal freshman season. We've seen some up and down moments from him this year, but we all knew he was going to be needed against that receiving corps. Had multiple big plays in that game in terms of just his coverage. And I think with him, as we look at both of these guys and hopefully getting up to 100% health for this game, I think when OJ came out, he was carted off the field, right? Talking to people that night, there was a lot of concern because of just the manner of it. He was in a walking boot. It was on crutches. So the visuals of that night did not look good. The days following that, from what I understand, the next day he felt way better. The diagnosis, from my understanding, was a mild calf strain, which we see it a lot in basketball these days. How the calf is so connected to the Achilles. You have to be, and the Achilles is a killer. It's the worst injury you can get at this, not only at this age, but you don't want to lose any of that explosiveness. But just like you have to be very careful in terms of re-aggravating that area. But the mild calf strain diagnosis was way better than what was potentially feared as something that could, and I'm not saying he's guaranteed to play here, but I think he's progressing towards being able to play. I think Damari might be more of a game time decision there, but I think you add weeks here to this process, and guys, it's not that he wouldn't have been able to, he's not trying to fight through and play. That's not what this is, right? But you get as close to 100% as you can be. Can you give something to this team? Can you be of as a team that you're playing here that is going to have a ton of snaps? They're going to try to have a ton of snaps. They're going to play at the tempo they're going to play at. Guys are going to get tired. So you need bodies for certain situations. And again, looks like there's been some really good progress with them. We'll see what happens.
Yep. No, hearing the same. And like you said, we'll see. Injuries are always tricky. Calf, the thing you don't want to do is rush back early, because we've seen guys rush back early from calf injuries and ultimately hurt their Achilles, which you do not want with a player like OJ Frederick, who's a huge part, not just of the potential run right now, but next year and NFL after that. So you hope he stays healthy, gets healthy, but he'll be needed, man. You watch Ole Miss, the way they spread it out. A lot of what they do, they get rid of it quick. So they will, carve you up with quick passes, sit in zones, just kind of, try to nullify your pass rush, getting rid of it quick. But if you play them tight, what they like to do is just go straight down the field with a fade, right? So but ball's out fast, right there down the sideline, receiver runs under it. You've seen that all over Ole Miss's film. Saw it against Georgia as well. So you want to stop that. You need corners who can run, who can cover, who aren't going to get beat right off the line. I think OJ Frederick, you saw him do that against Tate and Smith against Ohio State. That was exactly what he was dealing with, those fades down the sideline. He covered them beautifully. So I think just watching Ole Miss and how they operate, I don't think they're overwhelming with their receiver talent. I think Texas A&M and Ohio State presented much more problems in terms of receiver. I want to say much more problems. They were more talented at receiver, but Ole Miss has good receivers. When you talk about guys like Wallace from Penn State, Stripling from Oklahoma State actually originally played with Cam Ward, and Washington State had a really, really good game in the I call it the SEC championship game, the Sugar Bowl game against Georgia. And then Alexander, they got guys who can make plays, even if they don't have that first round kind of Jeremiah Smith, Concepcion type of guy. We need as many corners we can get. I think the fact that these two are progressing well is a very, very good thing. Shout out to you, Hell. Shout out to everybody who has been working to get our players healthy. So far, knock on wood, I think most of the injuries players have come back earlier than later. You credit you, Health. Also, you got to credit the individual players for how hard they're working in rehab to get back, because those are not all created equal, those rehab situations. We'll see how this one goes, but certainly positive signs when it comes to OJ Frederick and Damari Brown. You're going to need as many corners as you can have against an Ole Miss team that likes to spread teams out.
Yeah, and that's not the only position that I think they're going to need a lot of bodies to contribute, I'll say. As Martin Dubé mentioned, he said, I think Heatherman hinted there will be more subbing this week, especially on the D-line. A guy that is, also got banged up in that Ohio State game, Anthony Moten, or Ahmad Moten, excuse me.
Yeah, you sound like me.
I haven't done that one in a while.
You sound like me.
Yeah, you pulled that one a couple times this year, but Ahmad Moten got banged up there. The ankle, obviously, we've all seen the video of him and Mario after the game there. But I think he should be good to go. Obviously, ankle is one of those that could it limit you somewhat. I don't think there's any doubt about it, but the early guess is that he suits up for that one.
Yeah, I think that's right. By the way, and someone in the comments mentioned this, and I just pulled it up. Trinidad Chambliss has agreed to a new deal with Ole Miss, but it's pending his eligibility request being granted. So that's not done yet. He says he's confident that 6th year being granted based on an injury he had at Ferris State. Sounds like if he does get that year, he will go back to college and not go to the pros. So we'll see. Maybe it's a distraction. I doubt it.
Did you see the report yesterday that said that he that it doesn't look good that he's going to get the waiver?
Yeah.
But Pete Golding did tweet late in the night last night the old Trinidad and Tobago flag there that Lane likes to tweet. So that must have been the signing of the deal getting done. The question, which is a big deal because there was talk about him maybe if he gets the extra year as LSU in play there, but whether he gets the extra year or not, let's see. There was a report from Yahoo yesterday that said it did not look promising, but
a comment here from Nicholas saying Georgia's defense was very mid. Watching those games against Ole Miss, very close, one of them twice. I don't think Georgia's defense is as good as their stats. I think the SEC as a whole has been very overrated. I've mentioned before, I think Georgia's lost a lot of talent on defense compared to what we're used to seeing there. But the biggest problem to me with Georgia versus Ole Miss is that their pass rush is not very good. 124th in sack percentage nationally. So I think that really, not only does Ole Miss get the ball fast, even against teams like Oklahoma who do get to the quarterback, but with you going against Georgia, it's not getting there at all. They're able to make some plays. And even when Georgia got to the quarterback, because Ole Miss is really not elite protection-wise from like an NFL prospect standpoint, so they were beat one-on-one occasionally. Trinidad was still able to get rid of it and get out of there. So he's hard to sack. But I do think Miami, with one of the best pass rushes, in my opinion, the best pass rush in America, certainly from a four-man perspective, I think they have a better chance of getting Chambliss to the ground than Georgia. But certainly when you have corners that you can trust, like a Frederick, like a Damari Brown, obviously Xavier Lucas, Ethan O'Connor, who's playing at an extremely high level. The more you watch that tape against Ohio State, he's really playing quick, just sudden. His click and close ability to drive on the ball, very, very explosive. Gotten stronger, gotten more physical. The tackling is really good. So Ethan O'Connor's turning into a guy. Lucas, obviously, what Keontae Scott can do. Jabari Antoine, great play on the punt. The freshman from Louisiana, great play on the punt. Also played real defensive snaps. According to Heatherman, he's coming on in practice. So yeah, you're seeing that group. You mentioned the defensive line. Heatherman, I thought, was very candid And it was a good question. I forgot who asked it in the presser. Someone said, what did you learn from playing USF, SMU, some of these fast-paced teams, Pittsburgh? And he said, we just need to sub more. We just need to sub more, to your point. So we'll see maybe more Armando Blunt. I think Armando Blunt can kill in this game because they're not going to run right at him. I don't think they're physical like that. He's a little undersized, but he's extremely disruptive and he's tough. We'll see more of him, hopefully. See more of Marquise Lightfoot with the way he's playing. He can chase Chambliss a little bit too.
Booker Pickett, we saw him get some at least one snap. I didn't take a look at the snap count, but I saw him out there at least once. I talked to someone inside the building, and they said they were even surprised to see him out there. Not because he's not capable, but like we haven't for not having seen much of a guy, and then he gets, I think it was like a third down pass rushing opportunity for him. It's looking it's looking good, man, in terms of the amount of guys you're working in here. Jabari Antoine, we've talked about him a lot. The fact that he was in there, touchdown scored against him, but like that might have been the case regardless of who was covering him there.
Yeah, with Jeremiah, there was nothing happening there on that play. There's one thing that struck me, Pete, when I watch Ohio State game again and again and again. It's like that meme, how many times have you seen this? More. Seen it probably 500 times at this point. One thing that struck me is Caleb Downs and then Caden McDonald, number 98, Caleb Downs, number 2, the safety, and obviously Jeremiah Smith. They played A games. Like they were awesome and impactful. Styles, Reese, great players. They made plays. They weren't like on their best game, I guess you'd say, but they were still there doing their thing. Carnell Tate, somewhat of a non-factor. But those 3 first-round picks, Downs, McDonald, and Smith, played awesome. Like, messed up what we were trying to do. Truly impacted the game, tilted the field, true game changers. I don't know if Ole Miss, and I know Ole Miss does not have players that good. Now, that doesn't mean as a team they can't perform at that level. They have 13 wins for a reason. This is a close game on the spread. This is the semifinals. This is a dangerous, dangerous is the wrong word. This is a tough game. This is to go to the national championship. But one thing I did notice watching so much Ole Miss and then watching the Ohio State game again is that impact that Downs, McDonald, and Smith had. Miami was for Miami to win by double digits when those 3 guys played so well, I think is very, very impressive and speaks a lot to Miami because those 3 are game records and they all did their part to wreck the game, but ultimately did not do enough for Miami to lose because Miami was able to pull that one out by 2 scores. But that's just one thing that just jumped out watching so much yesterday is how good those guys were and how those guys are not on Ole Miss.
Yeah, Hayden Lowe's another guy who we've seen him practicing here at the end of the year. They've been pretty consistent from what I've heard, D, that they weren't planning to play him during the stretch. I don't think he was even dressed out last game, so that would line up there.
He wasn't. He looked huge though. I saw him celebrating on the field. The guy's enormous.
Herbert Scroggins out there as well, getting snaps. But that's been consistent. He's been playing a lot since like Stanford game, I want to say was the game we saw him really starting to get after it. Yeah.
And no, he's been really, really solid. And you're going to see still a lot of Messidor and Bain. I think you don't want to overwork them, but they're in great shape. So you can get more out of them maybe than someone who's not in good shape.
Hold on. My boy Ulysses. He says, CIA, Pete, you've been on this D-line depth thing since week 0. Let it go. What did I say that was negative about our D-line depth? I'm saying I'm excited to see these freshmen out here. I love it. I love it. I mean, it's great to see it. Like they're making an impact. It goes to show you how important D-line depth is, though. I don't think anything I said was off base. You needed to get guys to step up, and look what you've had now.
No, I appreciate your support, Ulysses, with CIA. But yes, this week is when you really get it tested because of the way they play, Ole Miss, with the speed they play with. And you heard Heatherman say it, so it's not just Pete saying it. Heatherman said, we got to sub more because we played SMU. Our guys got a little tired. USF was such a bloodbath. I don't think we had a subbing problem because we were able to get backups in. But he said, SMU, we got a little tired. So that was his quote as to what he learned. So I'd expect
if you want to go this deep, you need depth at certain positions. Are we saying anything off to say that, hey, and we think they have a good chance of being in the mix there, but if OJ and Damari don't play in this game, are you concerned about our defensive back? Are you concerned about our corner depth? I personally am a little bit, right? That's not to say that I don't think we have great talent at that position, but if you're playing game 14 now at this, which is what we've harped on we've said this all throughout the year. We've said, look, you're going to be playing 15, 16 games here potentially if you make it to a conference championship. You need these back end of the roster guys to, by the end of the year, be able to contribute something for you. So this isn't me hating on what they have. It's just like, okay, who's going to be the ones to step up from this group? You're going to need them at some point.
100%. And if you look at plays per game, offensive plays per game, which is what we're talking about here with subs and getting guys reps, Ohio State was 115th in the country in plays per game because of their slow pace of play. Their pace of play is actually the slowest in the country, but they controlled the ball. They got first down. So they were a little higher in terms of plays per game, but still 115th in the country, playing so slow. Slowest pace of anybody in the country. Mississippi's number 11. That's higher than anybody Miami's played this year in terms of plays per game. USF plays a ton. SMU plays a bunch, Pittsburgh. But in terms of just ranking them up, number one, as far as the teams Miami's played, is Ole Miss. Syracuse is in that mix. South Florida. So there's some teams we played that run a lot of plays. Pittsburgh, but that's the highest we played to date. So you had that level of intensity. We're talking about a semifinals. Guys are going to be flying around, you hope, running to the football, flying to the football, swarming, playing with tremendous effort and physicality. You need to keep guys fresh. So that's one of the stories of this game that I don't think applied to Ohio State, where because they were so slow and they didn't run that many plays, you wanted Bain and Messidor there as much as possible because they're your best players. And they had enough to go for most of the game. There were times where they sub. A lot of times the subs were just them moving to a different side and you brought in Lightfoot and Blunt to rush. It wasn't like they replaced Bain and Messidor. So this is going to be a much different animal, Pete. I think you've been talking about the defensive line depth. I think we have very good defensive line depth, quite frankly, but it will be tested in this game because that's what Ole Miss does.
Yeah, you mentioned the Ole Miss's pass rush isn't very prolific. But it's funny because even if you put a good pass rush unit against Miami, it doesn't seem to matter, right?
Yeah, I mean, Miami's not going to be pressured in this game. I'd be shocked. I think Carson Beck's going to have all day. The good thing about Ole Miss's defense is not good. Let's just be real. Ole Miss's defense is bad. This is one of the worst defenses Miami's played this year, including ACC, which I think we've seen now is much closer to the SEC than people think. Let's call a spade. Miami's offense has been inconsistent. Overall, I think pretty good, but inconsistent at times. So really the story of the game, and we'll break this game down a million different ways, is going to be Miami's offense and their ability to execute. I don't think the resistance from Ole Miss is going to be that much. Their defensive line doesn't rush the passer. They don't stop the run at all. I don't find them to have much of an identity on defense. They're kind of soft to me watching them on tape. Their defensive backs are poor. They don't take the ball away. They commit a lot of penalties, as do we. So they're not that good. Now, they have maybe the best offense, probably the best offense we faced all year, including Notre Dame and Texas A&M. Different, but based on how they match up with us and the way they play with the pace and the getting the ball out quick, neutralizing Bain and Messidor, our greatest strength, they're probably the toughest offensive matchup that we've played all year.
You know what's funny? I thought about this yesterday. I got to find the clip. One of those days we were going back and forth before Miami was officially in the playoff. You know, usually one of us is really right and really wrong in a lot of those arguments. There's a clip I have to find. I think we were both kind of right on. Miami wasn't in the playoff yet, and you were clowning Ole Miss, and I'm like, hey, I'd like to be Ole Miss right now. And you're like, oh, losing your coach and all that? Hey, they're in the semifinals here. You got to give them credit for really fighting through this. I think for as much as we can say the stuff was a factor for Miami in these first couple rounds in terms of the outside. I think they did a really good job of using that stuff to fuel them. There's never a way to actually know, but I think you could just see how they played. Ole Miss has done the same thing here with everything that's gone on. And I give them credit. So I think motivation-wise, both teams have a lot of motivation in this one. I think it's in that sense going to be a really good matchup of a couple teams that should have a lot of juice out there.
No doubt. Good comment here from Learn Quantum Computers. He says anyone can learn quantum. That's, I guess, his company. I don't even know what quantum is. It sounds very, very difficult. So if anyone can learn it, you must be a very
quantum
good
physics, maybe.
Good luck. If you could teach me that, you're a real G. Learn Quantum Computers. But yeah, appreciate your support. Says Miami needs to keep their offense off the field with a healthy run game. They need to run the ball first and second half, not just second half. I agree. And truthfully, Georgia should have ran it more. Gunnar Stockton, when I watched the game, I was like, Gunnar Stockton is really tough, man. He made some tough throws. He was getting crushed, improvising. I was like, this is a guy's a real gamer, which he is, which he's very tough, which he is, farm boy. And just, I was impressed when I watched the game the first time, just because he was just making so many tough plays. When I watched it again, he really, really limited their passing game. I mean, everything he did was out of the pocket, field cut in half, missed guys right over the middle. Like, he was just not as
gotta change my light situation here, D.
No, you're good. He just wasn't as impactful on the rewatch for Georgia as maybe it seemed just watching the big plays live. He really, really limited them. And I think every time they put the ball in Gunnar Stockton's hands and took it out of their running back's hands, their offense got worse. He made some plays, but he was limiting them in that way. And they scored a bunch of points because Ole Miss's defense is bad, but they did not control the game the way they could have. You saw Beck, and really Beck this whole year has been able to control the game with the passing game.
We're getting some rat poison comments here from Big C. He says, last time you guys talked this confidently was pre-Louisville and SMU. Hey, it might be a good point there, Big C.
But we've been comparing this offense at Ole Miss to Louisville and SMU. Yeah. So we know the problem, which is they're different offenses. Louisville quarterback doesn't move. They do not play at a fast pace. They're much more about controlling the clock. And then SMU, probably more similar to how Ole Miss plays. But in both cases, they got rid of the ball quick. And I remember in those matchups, one of the things in retrospect, I was wrong about was I was like, well, our defensive line is going to dominate this matchup. Yeah. These guys are not very good up front, which is, I think is true from like an NFL body standpoint. SMU, Louisville, and I'll throw Ole Miss in there. I don't expect a lot of draft picks from that crew. I don't think individually these guys are great lines. But within the systems that they play, when they're rolling, they can be effective in neutralizing a Bain and Messidor because they get rid of it so quick, right? SMU, Jennings had a huge game against Miami. He had really the best game passing against Miami that any quarterback had this year. Miller Moss was able to control the game. And Trinidad Chambliss is better than all those guys. He doesn't get sacked ever.
That's the biggest difference here between these teams as well, D, is that Chambliss is a legit threat. Jennings can run a little bit as well, but the arm, it's not as explosive there. I mean, he has a really good understanding of their offense, but Chambliss can push that thing. He was making some throws the other night.
No doubt. I think he's much more similar. Like, this is SMU to me. He's just very similar to Jennings in the way he plays. Now, the difference between SMU and Ole Miss, I think SMU's defense is actually better than Ole Miss. There you go. Like Nicholas says, they're 18th against the run. They're really, really good in takeaways, which in that game, there were 2 takeaways for SMU. One of them was not Beck's fault, but still they made the play. So they take the ball away and they stop the run, which when you're playing Miami, you need to stop the run and you need to take the ball away, right? That's our Achilles heel because Beck can throw turnovers at times, although on the whole, he was okay this year, but that's going to be his weakness when we do struggle and running the ball. We don't run the ball. We're a much different team. So that was a tough matchup defensively, SMU against Miami. I think SMU's defense is better than Ole Miss, but the big difference, and we mentioned, I think Jennings is really good. The more I watch Kevin Jennings from SMU, the more I'm impressed by him. I think he's a really good quarterback. I don't think there's a monster difference between him and Chambliss because I think Jennings is good, but Chambliss is better. right? Chambliss is another level of player, but I think
Jennings Chambliss can play in the NFL.
He could. Now I'm a starter, just his size. Because we take him out of the system, he has to take.
I didn't really consider him as much as an NFL guy, but then I was just again seeing how he spins that thing, man. He can make some throws.
The problem with him in the NFL is, all that quick stuff. It's not like they're going to run the same.
And he'll get chased down by some of those defensive ends in the league if he's trying to run around and do that.
Yeah, and his size becomes more of a factor when he's not getting rid of it so quick. When he actually is taking hits like Cam Ward took this year, I mean, it becomes more difficult. So he has a chance. His arm is good enough. His arm is way better than I thought. I thought he was more just like an accurate guy, but he can throw with accuracy and power.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what stood out to me the other day. And I've watched him before that game, but something, maybe the adrenaline in the game or something, it looked a little different out there.
Yeah. So I'm not, look, SMU is the reason I'm nervous, because I do see a lot of similarities to SMU. Again, I think SMU's defense is better. I think Chambliss is better than Jennings, but I think both are very good. And Jennings killed us. I think the big difference between SMU and Ole Miss offensively is Kewan Lacey. Remember, SMU did not run the ball at all. I think they had negative yards going into overtime running the ball against Miami. Lacey, you're going to need to commit extra resources to stop him, and he's still going to get his. Miami's been awesome against these NFL running backs between Jeremiah Love, your boy Jaden Baugh, some others. But this is going to be a big challenge. And I think SMU did not present that same challenge offensively with the running back and then everything they do in the passing game. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. It's a tough game, man. It's going to be a tough battle. We'll be talking about it nonstop. But you got a tough battle with weeds, with hurricanes, with all the other things that mess up your beautiful landscapes. Talk to OrchidMan Florida, ORCHID man. Florida.com, South Florida's premier landscape artisans, Palm Beach, all the way down to the Florida Keys. You see those OM trucks all over Miami, all over Broward. You know what it is. It is the Orchid Man, huge supporter of Canes Athletics. 786-271-0332. Passionate about landscape. So if you want a beautiful landscape for your house, for your business, call OrchidMan Florida, ORCHID manflorida.com. 10% off your first service. Irrigation, hurricane prep, lighting, gutters, you name it, they'll do it at orchidmanflorida.com. So we're going to talk a lot about the portal in general here at the end of the show, but I wanted to focus on Miami's portal movements because it's been very quiet. I've been a little more quiet than usual. I know you posted a few things on your Discord, prove to be very accurate. Kind of, there's a lot of things. There's agents talking and stuff. There's a lot of shrapnel going all different directions. But in terms of what Miami's doing, they're pretty focused and they're pretty quiet about what they're doing because they don't want to make a huge mess when it comes to their prep. You made the point yesterday, and you're right. Indiana, which we'll talk about, is getting ready for the same Final Four, and they're signing 1 million guys.
Ole Miss has a ton of commits and signees now too as well.
Right. So who's right, who's wrong, I don't know. But Miami is operating quietly, and there is a lot of misinformation from agents out there. But you've been reporting on your Discord. We've been talking about it on the show. CanesInSight.com, 7.7 million posts and counting. The transfer portal board is like on fire. 2 names visiting confirmed this past weekend. Both South Florida guys. Jacobs from a little further north, but both Florida guys, and both guys I think that fit a need for this team and this program.
Yeah, we'll start with Vandrevius Jacobs, originally from the Fort Myers area. Fort Myers. Maybe it was Fort Pierce. I don't want to mess that up. I was just in the Fort Myers area. Yeah, Fort Pierce. Sorry. Don't want to
East Coast.
Use the two there. Yeah, East Coast. Fort Myers on the West Coast. Jacob started his career at Florida State. Actually, started a couple games there as a freshman, but at South Carolina, a guy who Lenore Sellers, I think he would have been a guy that Miami wanted to be their quarterback, but we've seen the inconsistencies as a passer. They have a couple other big time targets out there as well. But he's a guy who had big games against big time opponents, 170 yards against Clemson this year. I think Miami really believes he could add a nice speed element to this offense. And look, they're going to be pretty heavy at wide receiver here, I think. I think you're looking at 2 to 3 guys potentially coming in at the wide receiver spot in the portal. And Jacobs would be a nice start there.
And you know why? I mean, we need it, right? When it comes to receiver. You look at someone made this comment in the chat. How many guys are really practicing right now at receiver? Ray Joseph's in the portal. Chance Robinson's in the portal. Who else is in the portal? Night Carr is in the portal. Dalen Upshaw's banged up. So there's a lot of guys that are just not.
Tony Johnson has not been available.
Tony Johnson's not been available. So you have the guys you really, really need, right? You have Tony, you have CJ Daniels, you have Keelan Marion. I think JoJo Trader has a big opportunity here, Josh Moore, but you're down numbers. So luckily you got some more in Wingo, your elite wide receiver signee from last year's class who's already on campus practicing, but he's not going to help you necessarily in the games. You just need numbers. You need numbers of practice. You need numbers to play. Vance Spafford, Milan Paris, Tyron Evans on the way again from that class of 26. Wingo already here, but you still need more. There's no second portal to add a Keelan Marion and a Tony Johnson like we did last year, or a Sam Brown like we did the year prior. So you got to, I don't say oversign, but you got to be aggressive now. And I think with Jacobs, interesting path, Vero Beach kid. He's actually not from Fort Pierce, from Vero Beach, which I guess pretty similar, pretty close by. Signed with Florida State out of high school. Miami was in the mix there a little bit. Plays a little bit as a freshman, but then doesn't like his playing time, goes on the portal, goes to South Carolina, and really goes on a positive trajectory, gets more playing time in 24, but explodes in 25. And the thing that jumps out to you about Jacobs, and you mentioned it, is the explosive ability. 17.1 yards per catch, had 141 yards against Clemson. Also had a long touchdown, 50-yard against Texas A&M. So he's done it against good opponents, 74-yard touchdown against Clemson. He can get behind these defenses that you have to play if you want to be a playoff team. Sellers is a deep ball thrower anyway, so maybe he has more to his game that a more accurate quarterback could unlock. But I think just in general, the ability to get down the field is an area Miami really lacks. That is probably their biggest weakness right now on offense, is their ability to make big plays down the field passing game, especially with Malachi Tony's been bottled up. Daniels has been outstanding. Keelan Marion also, but what they do has not been necessarily the downfield running by guys. So you need someone who does that. Jacob's not really a track guy. He kind of reminds me more, I think Gabby made this comparison too, like how Jacoby George is just smooth with it, hands catcher, gets down the field, not necessarily a track star, but Jacobs to me reminds me a little bit of that, maybe more physical talent than what George brought to the table. I don't know what you think when you watch Jacobs.
Yeah, but I see the play speed though. I don't know what he's going to run when to your point, to when he's going to line up and run a 40, but I see the play speed, and I think Miami sees him as because I was getting the question on the Discord yesterday. Hey, is this all they're going to get at receiver? I think Miami sees him as a piece to the puzzle. I think he could be in a similar role to what Keelan Marion played this year for Miami.
Yeah, I think more downfield. Marion.
Yeah,
we got Marion.
Marion's done a lot of intermediate stuff.
Yeah, Marion it's funny. We got Marion thinking, all right, he's going to be a gadget guy. He really is not. I mean, he had one against FSU that he probably could have housed. But other than that, he hasn't done a lot of damage as a gadget guy. Most of it's been as just like an old-fashioned strong possession receiver, Keelan Marion. And then Daniels, you kind of knew that's what he was. So I think Jacobs, if it works out, will be that over 15-yard per catch player.
Yeah.
I love the quote he has on the Twitter. Look at that. Being broke is hard. Becoming rich is hard. Choose your hard.
And I will say, we're sticking with Fort Pierce. He has it in the bio. We can't claim Vero for him.
There you go. Well, he played for Vero, which is a very good program. Maybe getting travel probably to play there. I believe I read that, I'm just confirming this, but I believe that Ventravius was also a captain for South Carolina. So high character.
Yeah, they weren't happy to lose him, from what I understand. So that's one of those where we talk about it on the portal all the time. If a program kind of just lets a guy walk and doesn't give it much of a battle, you turn your head and you say, I mean, what's wrong with him, right? Why aren't they putting up a fight for him as a character, as a talent? Is it something else, something in the locker room? And that was not the case, it doesn't seem like, with Jacobs. So
yeah, also academic honor roll guy, which to me, people scoff at this kind of stuff. When you're bringing in transfers, this is speed dating. Like, you got to be extra careful with character, or else you could screw up the character of your team in 2 weeks, right? So I think being overly careful with character and making sure the guys are exactly what you want is huge. And look at the character of the guys that we brought in this last class. I mean, in terms of the identity of this team, in the Miami Hurricanes of 2025, now 2026, trying to win a championship. Keelan Marion, tons of juice, team guy all the way. CJ Daniels, I mean, coach on the field, right? Mo Toure, what he does heart-wise is also a coach on the field. Jacoby Thomas, like we brought in guys that fit what you want character-wise. James Brockermeyer, Marty Brown. So that is something I think Miami should always emphasize in the portal. I think you see teams like Indiana doing that as well. One of the ways it can go south on you, and you saw this with FSU. Why did FSU's portal recruiting go south? They brought in some guys that didn't love football. And I think that really killed their culture overnight, on top of some other issues they had. LSU, right? LSU, and I don't know all the different people at LSU, but they signed some guys with some character warts. You know, Patrick Payton extorted FSU the year before for money and then quit. And they brought him in. So I'm not blaming everything that happened at LSU on just that, but what I'm saying is when you're really strict on character and bringing KJ Osborne type guys in, De'Ara King type guys in, Cam Ward type guys in, it protects the culture of your team and in many cases enhances the culture of your team from the outside. From what I've seen from Jacobs, again, I don't know the player, but captain, like you mentioned, South Carolina, not happy to lose him, academic honor roll. I like all that stuff. And then you bring the explosive element. That's something we need. So it makes a lot of sense to fit. No news yet. We'll see. I know he loved his visit. Sounds like he's really eager for this opportunity. Miami's operating very, very quietly, but I think this one makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I wonder if Miami's telling guys not to officially announce yet, D, and wait for the game to be over.
Yeah, I can see that big time.
Especially, you know, the next guy we're going to talk about, who I think is in a similar light, has a ton of interest in Miami, is a local prospect out of high school, very productive player in the ACC, and that's Omar Thornton from Boston College. Versatile defensive back, and I think someone who would fit the identity of what this defense is under Corey Heatherman to a T.
Yeah, you see the clip where he knocked that dude out and then did the go to sleep celebration.
Yeah, I wish we could play it, man. I wish we could play it.
I know, me too. Yeah, I think, you know, one thing that I've learned, and again, maybe it's wrong or right, I don't know. This is my opinion, but this is something that I've tried to just take and apply. When you look at Mo Toure, when you look at Jacoby Thomas, you could nitpick those guys coming in and say, and they were not, I don't believe either was a 4-star portal guy. I think they're both 3-star portal guys, if I recall. Obviously, they played like 4-star portal guys. But when you look at them coming in, it was, well, you know, Jacoby Thomas, is he going to be able to cover enough, right? Is he just kind of a linebacker playing safety? Mo Toure, can he cover it all? Like, is he a liability in space? And they've not been perfect in those areas because, you know, they're not Sean Taylor and Fred Warner, you know. But what they brought was a tremendous emphasis on physicality, an edge that you can't fake. I mean, these guys are cut from a different cloth from a physicality standpoint. They're hitting everything moving. And when you bring in guys like that, either from high school or from the portal, and you say, all right, listen, they got these other issues, these other flaws. They're not perfect, which who is? But they had this, and this is going to add some identity to our defense. You get a defense like Miami, which from last year was not a physical defense whatsoever, on top of all the other problems they had. This year is killing everything moving. Every extra hit they are taking, they are borderline dirty. Ethan O'Connor's out here suplexing people. It is a dirty, physical, aggressive defense, and I think you need guys like that. And this dude right here, very productive, not the biggest dude in the world, 5'11", 201 from American Heritage, which has been a defensive back factory. Daryl Porter made the NFL. He played for the Steelers. I don't know if he played yesterday, but he's played this season for the Steelers. Shout out to Daryl Porter Jr. Heritage has been just on an incredible run with defensive backs. Xavier Lucas now playing for Miami. So his pedigree's there. He's done it in the ACC. But I think more than anything with Thornton, he's obviously friends with players on the team. Broward kid. We got a ton of Broward defensive backs. We got Malachi Toney from Heritage. They're close. This guy just has that killer edge. And I think if you lose, hopefully Toure comes back with the red shirt, you know, the eligibility. Hopefully he comes back. You're going to lose Jacoby Thomas. If you're going to replace a Jacoby Thomas with this guy, I think you are keeping that edge on your defense and in your defensive backfield.
Yeah, and you mentioned all of the fits in terms of being a South Florida guy and all of that. You need to stock these defensive backs up, man. You need to continue to stock them up. You've seen, I mentioned it earlier in the show, we talk about depth. You need to acquire these bodies. You're losing Keontae Scott. You're losing. I don't want to say that you're for sure losing one of these guys, D, but I just have to think one of these four corners is going to go.
No, probably. I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. So,
like, I hate to be the bearer of bad news there. I hope I'm wrong, but it just seems unlikely all four of them stay.
Yeah, no doubt. But I think overall,
if you feel good about what you have, Jabari Antoine coming up, Chris Ewald, someone I believe in big time here moving forward. I think he's going to have a big spring, but you need guys.
Yeah, you need guys. And again, I think you need get parts of the game. And the part game you miss the most with Jacoby Thomas is that the craziness. I mean, I know another way to say it. I mean, the guy is a maniac, and you got to replace one maniac with the other if you want to keep that edge. Drago pointing out, you watch the cinematic version, those defensive backs are hitting everything that moves violently. Heatherman, and yes, Heatherman, I think, is part of that, but you also need the on-field guy to set that tone. We said it from before last year, meaning before Cam Ward's season, when we were looking at like what are the strengths and weaknesses of this team. I said, you said, there's no tone setter on defense. We were hoping like Zaquan Patterson could be that or something like that, but we said there's no tone setter, and there never was. This year, there certainly was. I say Toure and Jacoby Thomas were probably the two foremost tone setters, at least in the backside when you talk about Bain and Messidor up front. This dude, Thornton, I think could fit that. Forced fumbles this year. 4. He's an explosive dude. American heritage. Makes a ton of sense. I can see this one getting done.
It's tough to avoid the question. We're getting a lot of questions about Coy Parrish from Minnesota. I'll say this, man. I think there's some smoke there. I haven't confirmed anything concrete on that end. It would make a lot of sense with the ties to Corey Heatherman. I have no idea how far along they are in that process, but it would make a lot of sense to add an elite defensive playmaker like him to this roster.
No doubt. And if you look at Coy Parrish, freshman All-America last year with Corey Heatherman, not as good this year with the new defensive coordinator. I'm not sure who it is in Minnesota. So he took a step back. Sophomore slump, I don't know what happened, but obviously the new defensive coordinator. The sell if you're Heatherman is, hey, you had your best season with me. Let's roll. Plus we pay you at Miami. You guys get paid and you compete for championships on great defenses. Just turn on ESPN, right? So great pitch, I think, for Parrish, especially this year, probably more so than last year. Remember last year when we got Heatherman, everybody's like, oh, you're gonna get this guy coming off a freshman All-America year. It didn't really make a lot of sense why he would leave. It makes more sense this year because the Minnesota's not really going anywhere, even though he's local up there. He had a step back season and he wants more money. He was pretty open about it. And he wants to play for a championship. So I think Miami checks those boxes. You've heard Ohio State also linked to him. They lose Caleb Downs. Could that be something where he was, I think, second? They were second for him coming out of high school. And then maybe they just say, hey, you'll be Caleb Downs. Go 1-for-1 switch. That's possible too. He doesn't have that relationship with Matt Patricia he has with Heatherman, obviously. Didn't even get recruited by Patricia. So we'll see, man. I think Miami makes a lot of sense. And people might be asking, well, you got Thornton. You get Parrish. You have Fitzgerald. You have Poyser coming back. Dylan Day. All these guys. They'll move things around. But you still lose Keontae Scott and you lose Jacoby Thomas, 2 of your best players. You got to figure out how to fit it. I know when Keontae Scott got injured, you put Fitzgerald at nickel, Poyser at nickel a little bit. You didn't miss a beat. And that's without Keontae Scott, who is the best nickel in the country, maybe the best defensive back in the country, period. So when you have a lot of versatile guys, I think you can do a lot of things. I don't think Bryce Fitzgerald's a pure safety. I think he's a safety on passing downs because he gets picks. But really, to me, he's much more of a corner and just his speed and his athleticism and his fluidity. So he's someone you move around anyways. Like, I don't think you just say, hey, you're our start. Like, hey, Jacoby Thomas is gone. You're our safety now. I don't think that's how you really use Bryce Fitzgerald.
Malp the G asking for a Jordan Lau update. I'll say this, D. I don't think it's completely out of the question that he returns to Miami next year.
And let me tell you, if that's the way it works out, I think that would be a massive portal. I won't say addition, but a massive portal move, because you're not going to find a guy with that kind of physical ability and that kind of mindset in the portal, at least for cheap. Not that he would be cheap to come back. You know what I mean? Like, without paying a huge premium, like as a starter level premium. So I think you get him back and give him on a prove it kind of situation. I think he'd be phenomenal. I think he still has NFL talent. He's a good kid. He works really hard. He's very competitive. I would love to get Jordan Lyle back on this offense. I think he has a really, really bright future. I thought it would be somewhere else, but if it's here, and again, he's traveling, right? A lot of these other guys are not traveling. He's there with the team, suited, ready to play, unlike a Chance or a Nikar or some of these other guys. So we'll see on that, but I think that'd be a huge, huge coup. Appreciate your support. Learn Quantum Computers here. Says the key for Miami defense, stop the run, get pressure on Chambliss with linebacker and defensive back pressure. Miami secondary has 13 sacks this season. I agree with you. Number one priority, stop Lacey. I think he's the best player, even better than Chambliss. I think he's an NFL guy. Stop the run. And then Chambliss is still dangerous, but I think back to like a Heinzel, like a Mason Heinzel from Pitt. And we talked about on the show before that game. I said, blitz him with defensive backs. He can't escape them because he's not fast enough, and he's not strong enough to really break those tackles. Chambliss is the same way. He's athletic, but he's not more athletic than Jacoby Thomas chasing him, and he's not stronger than Jacoby Thomas chasing him. So you can bring him down with that. Keontae Scott, same thing. You can bring him down with that defensive back pressure and use the defensive ends to be strong in their rush, to be disciplined and keep them somewhat bottled up. And then the corner, the nickel, the safety, that's the finisher to get him to the ground. Pitt would be the game plan for that, because that's exactly what we talked about before the Pitt game. That's what turned out to be on the field.
So you want to talk some portal across the country here, D?
Real quick, before we go across the country, let's go to the edge of Coral Gables, right? How about the heart of Miami, Duffy's Tavern? 60 plus years serving the Miami community. And I know it's your home away from home. We'll be celebrating there, hopefully with Steve Kim, if Miami's able to take care of business in the Fiesta Bowl as he comes down from Miami Gardens. But yeah, man, so much history on the walls. 60 plus years now, accepting credit cards after 60 plus years, finally moving into the modern era, new ownership. These guys are keeping all the charm and just history of the old place. There you see that case closed sign in the back. That's Miami's national championship in 2001 headline. There's so much Miami memorabilia on the walls. But this is the spot. If you're not going to be at the Fiesta Bowl in Arizona, most of you won't be, head out to Duffy's Tavern, get some of those wings, get that death dog, get that hot dog right there, the fries, the green beer, you name it, they got it at Duffy's Tavern right there in the edge of Coral Gables, the home of the Hurricanes. And Joel says, Duffy's, my liver has never been the same. All right, Pete, let's talk about it. So folks who are in the chat listening on the podcast, we're doing something a little different this year. Last year, me and Pete did a lot of daily portal coverage on a separate channel, Group Chat Sports, just sort of going around the country, not necessarily Miami related directly, portal coverage. And it was awesome. Got a lot of great engagement, got a lot of great views, just had a lot of fun doing it. And I think the most important thing is by doing that, we learned so much about the teams that by the time it came down to preparing for the college football season, we knew all these teams because we had watched the portal movement, which, as we've seen with Ole Miss, top 5 portal team in the country last year, Miami, top 5 portal team in the country last year. Indiana wasn't ranked as a top 5 portal team last year, but they should have been, and we actually highlighted them as a team that was underrated in the portal. And then Oregon was a top 5 portal team. So the portal is going to tell you what's up. Texas Tech, of course, number 1 portal team, or number 2. So portal's going to tell you what's up, and we want to follow all this movement. It was really, really heavy this weekend because it was the first day of the portal officially, July 2nd. So you saw a flurry of commitments. It's not going to be maybe that every single day, but we want to catch you up on some of these moves because they impact Miami, first of all, because all these dominoes connect. And they also tell you about these teams and how these teams develop going forward. So let us know if you like this segment, but we're going to be going pretty much around the horn on the portal every single show here towards the end. Got 2,700 on live. Like and subscribe to the show for not only daily Miami coverage, but for daily portal coverage. So, Pete, I'll let you kick it off, but a lot of stuff to get to across the country.
Yeah, you mentioned Indiana. They're strong. Their strong haul last year, and they're keeping it moving here. They got their quarterback in Josh Hoover from TCU. Who, he was a name we really didn't talk much about in all this, but I don't think he would have been a terrible option for Miami. Obviously, Signetti sees something in him the same way that went very strong after Mendoza last year, right? Like, make no mistake about it. And in a lot of this stuff we talk about, we will talk about how it affects the Canes. But like, if Miami had really made a run at Mendoza last year, I'm sure that they would have had a strong chance to get him. Yeah. Indiana prioritized him. They did the same thing here, it seems like, with Josh Hoover. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, they had a really strong day yesterday.
Signetti. So what Signetti is best at, maybe, but I would say he's best at his talent evaluation, is how he got his start with Saban in Alabama. That's really where he kind of elevated his career. Son of a coach, so he's been at it for a while, but that to me was a big thing for him. And he's taking that to Indiana. They've been killing the portal. He did a great job evaluating at James Madison from the high school level, brought a lot of those guys with him in the portal, and now he's been adding in the portal, taking his team from what was a very good team last year, a playoff team, to what is now the championship favorite. And he did that through the portal, right? He did not do it through high school recruiting, he did it through the portal. And they're right back at it again. When you look at Indiana's portal additions, they've elevated because they're number one team in the country right now. So they're getting high-level guys, 4-star prospects out of the portal, but also guys that fit, that no character stuff, proven production, good physical traits, fit the system. They're just the right kind of guys for what they want, and a high level. So you mentioned Josh Hoover from TCU, Texas kid. I believe he was actually going to Indiana out of high school before flipping to the local school, TCU, later. So that's an interesting kind of twist to it, why he might have ended back up at Indiana despite being a Texas guy. But I think with him, the key is that he is an RPO passer. Texas Christian runs a ton of RPO. He flourishes in that system. And what does Curt Signetti like to do? RPO, one of the most RPO heavy teams in the country. So he goes from one of the most RPO heavy teams in the country to another. Tons of experience, has a good arm, NFL future potentially. This is not the big money addition in the portal. Mendoza was a pretty expensive player last year. I'm sure Hoover is not cheap, but it's not like Sorsby, who's a $5 million player. But I think Hoover is a very, very good fit for what they want to do. Interesting, where Miami's being so careful not to ruffle feathers with the portal. Indiana's getting a ton of guys, and then Hoover, he's going for the job that not belongs to, but is kind of earmarked for Mendoza's brother. So if you want to talk about disruption to the team, this could have potentially done it, bringing in a Hoover to basically jump in front of.
Why isn't Curt Signetti developing his quarterbacks, D?
Why isn't he developing anybody? He's living in the portal. He's another Norvell, right?
No one, but I mean, this is what it is, man. It's
Curtis
just,
Rourke also is from Ohio.
I'm joking around about some of the comments we get if you did not catch that one.
Yeah, and Curtis Rourke also from Ohio the first year. Another portal guy that ended up being really, really good for him. So
went to the playoffs with him.
What's up?
Went to the playoffs with him.
Yeah, got drafted. So Hoover was a big-time pickup. Running back, again, I just when I watch these guys, Pete, they all just kind of fit what the Indiana already does. So it's really
EJ didn't get the comment. He says, "Man, we do the same thing."
Yeah, exactly. But like they just get guys that fit what they do, man. Like Turbo Richard out of Boston College, Rock Hill, South Carolina native. That's the Charlotte area. 5'8", 207, 100-meter state champion in high school. Just like a Roman Hemby clone, man. Plays in the ACC, so he's already got high-level film out there. He's not like a G5 guy necessarily. 5.2 yards a carry, 9 touchdowns this past year. Also caught 2 more. He's a sophomore, going to be a rising junior. But again, just very much plays like the guys they have. Strong body, not the biggest guy in terms of height, but has speed. He has some shiftiness, but I'd say more of like a straight line hit it kind of guy. Just reminds me of what they have. So you lose Hemby. Turbo Richard slides right in as a productive power 4 player. And I think they're not going to miss a beat running the ball with him. So again, the fit is there. The big one, and I think this impacts Miami because Miami's playing Notre Dame next year. So Notre Dame was very, very hot after Nick Marsh, one of the most highly touted receivers in the portal. This was a Michigan State wide receiver, true sophomore, rising junior, who was an elite recruit out of high school, top 100 recruit out of Detroit. So even though he went to Michigan State, he was a top recruit. 6'3", 203 pounds, elite after the catch, 28 missed tackles, which is second in the country after the catch. Big, strong hands catcher. as a sophomore, 59 catches, 662 yards, 6 touchdowns. Didn't really have the quarterback situation there either. Aiden Childs was very inconsistent. So this was a big blue chip portal get. Notre Dame wanted him. Indiana gets him. I think it's a good thing for Miami because Miami did not want to face this guy when they went to South Bend. Notre Dame needs a receiver. They're light at receiver. They lose Malachi Fields. They weren't that good this year, receiver, to be honest. Like they thought they'd be. I think Nick Marsh would have been awesome for him. I'm glad he's going to Indiana instead of Notre Dame.
And he gives them, I think, something a little bit different on the outside, right? Gives them a real dynamic threat there. And they win games with their style of play, and Mendoza has given them the ability to be, more of a downfield threat this year in the passing game. But you start to get some of these athletes on the outside with what they're going to do in the trenches and just the standpoint of being a well-coached team and not beating themselves. That's where it gets very, very dangerous if you're the rest of the Big Ten there.
100%. And look, no weird stuff with these guys, like character stuff, at least not that I'm aware of. Again, we don't know, right? But like you don't hear about any weird character deals with these guys. Like sometimes someone leaves because of, some like a suspicious reason, an eyebrow-raising reason. Like, why is this guy leaving? These guys are not. Nick Marsh is leaving for good reason. He wanted to be local and stay at Michigan State. He's a Detroit kid, but they've had problems. Our quarterback's transferring. The whole thing's a mess. So I think that's why he's leaving. He's going to Indiana, making a business decision. A lot of these guys, when you look at their recruiting process, they're just making smart business decisions to go to Indiana. And Indiana is going to do their part and develop them. A couple other guys I want to get to here.
Well, I wanted to talk about something real quick, Miami related with Indiana, because we've gotten the question a couple times about whether or not Miami should bring in Alberto Mendoza's younger brother. I just don't see why that would be a fit for Miami, other than just saying, hey, it's Fernando Mendoza's brother. I'm a fan of the talent, but he's got to play. He's going into year 3 now?
Yeah.
Is he coming to Miami? He's not coming to Miami to be the guaranteed starter. He's got to play. But, there's been some worse ideas. You get him, you get someone else who's not necessarily super proven, but is a talent. If you have 2 guys transfer, because I don't know that it's out of the realm possibility that Judd Anderson stays and you get a couple of the other guys, out the door, then you're going to need to bring in 2 quarterbacks. If that's the case.
Obviously you're not bringing,
but not as the guaranteed starter.
Of course not. Exactly. Which people in the comments are kind of acting like that's not what you're saying at all. You're saying just getting another arm in the room. I like Alberto Mendoza, by the way. I've liked him since high school. He was a bigger recruit than his brother. His brother was going to Yale. We actually were the only people talking about him at CanesInSight as far as a media perspective before he ultimately flipped to Cal late. Mendoza was a bigger recruit. He went to Indiana out of high school, Power 4 team. Much more athletic than Mendoza. Fernando at the same age, not as tall. He's like 6'2". But I like Alberto Mendoza, always have. And he's looked good when he's played. I'm surprised they went this route, but shows you how committed they are to the portal. Brought in 2 really talented defensive ends at Indiana. There's a team that's had a good pass rush this year with guys like this. Both guys, and this is what I like about Cignetti. This is why he's a good talent evaluator. He's not just getting these try-hard defensive ends. He's getting defensive ends who try hard and compete hard, but that have physical tools. And that because of injury and some other reasons aren't in the NFL yet. But they add Toby Osunsanmi. How about that one? From Kansas State, see if I pronounced that right. From Wichita, Kansas kid. Like a lot of these Kansas kids, he's just one of these freak athletes. 10'8", 500 meters. Remember, there's a defensive end. 6'3", 250. Missed half the year with injury, but was very productive. Had 4 sacks while he played. And you watch his film, super fast, as you expect with a 10'8", 5 defensive end. Big time closing speed. Has a nice little freeze frame celebration when he gets a sack, just freezing. Then you added the other side, Joshua Burnham from Notre Dame. And again, how does this impact Miami? Notre Dame loses a player who played for them in Joshua Burnham. Northern Michigan kid was on the freaks list from Bruce Feldman. Played a ton of sports, 6'4", 260, 15 starts, 40 career games, played and contributed during their run to the championship. Also played this year. One of the Notre Dame podcasters I saw said he was their best defensive end in November of this year. So there's a guy that was part of their team and helping them win games. 12 games this year, 4 starts, 16 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. So this is a loss for Notre Dame to lose this guy. Plagued by injuries, but again, when he played, he was very effective, high-effort player, very athletic. Pat Coogan, Holden Stays, 2 Notre Dame transfers that went to Indiana last year. Pat Coogan was a part-time player at Notre Dame, goes to Indiana, starts, and he was holding the trophy as the MVP of the Rose Bowl. So I'm sure Burnham saw that and said, I want that for myself. That's why he goes to Indiana. A couple safeties they added. Preston Zachman, Wisconsin guy, 6-year safety, 6'1", 212 pounds. Just big white dude. He gets picks, good player. Jaquan Sanks from Alabama, Cincinnati transfer. They like to get some defensive backs from the South. Got a lot of South Florida kids there. He fits that bill. Explosive, plays hard, plays smart, and tackles. So just an awesome haul for the Indiana Hoosiers. I think they're not done, but they're clearly not planning to go anywhere with Kurt Cignetti. They're planning to just go right back to the playoff next year for the third year in a row, which is crazy to say.
Yeah, and again, for people who are just trying to tie this into Mike, because I know there's a lot of questions about, why isn't Miami going this hard in the portal just yet? And look, I don't know whether it's the best strategy or I don't know what the best strategy is. Time will tell, right? But you look at what Indiana's done in terms of the high school ranks the last couple years, and they just don't spend at the high school level that much, right? They don't haul in these top rated classes. 2024 class was ranked. I'm looking for it here because I can't. I'm scrolling. Indiana's recruiting class in 2024 was ranked 66th in the country out of high school. 2025, I don't know that it was much better. So and that's the class for the 49th in the country in the high school class last year. And then we're talking about the team that's now in the semifinals and is undefeated, right? This year's recruiting class that just signed, 33rd in the country, D. So it's naturally going to get better because they're winning more, but they aren't spending on high school right now. They are unloading the bag on the portal class right now. So it's working for them. So you can't say that it's not a good strategy, but I'm just trying to compare and contrast what the situation is with Miami. So,
and they got money. Indiana's a really rich school. They got a ton of alums. I was in Texas seeing people in Indiana shirts just walking around. So they're a big school, man. So they got money. They can do it. And it makes sense they're focusing on portals just because they're not going to be razzle-dazzle to high school kids. Indiana's not the sexiest place in the world. They don't got a lot of local kids. But portal guys, it's all business. So they got a business sell. They got a pretty good business sell too. Marcus Neal, another safety. Or sorry, I'm skipping ahead here. Let's switch to Penn State. And one thing I want to talk about is with Indiana when they first got Cignetti, the big thing they did was they brought basically the whole James Madison team. All the best players from James Madison just followed him. So they had a team kind of travel with him on top of the players they already had there, like Carter Smith. So that, to me, sped up their process, both from a culture building perspective and just adding really good players, guys that are key, especially on defense. Two teams are doing the same thing with new coaches, probably more when you look at what James Franklin does. But I want to focus on two, which is Penn State and Oklahoma State. Let's start with Penn State here. Of course, Matt Campbell takes over. I thought it was a really, really good hire. Bad process for Penn State, but ultimately lands on the right guy with Matt Campbell. 15 transfers from Iowa State to Penn State. It's a winning Iowa State program. And one thing I think that Matt Campbell doesn't get enough credit for, Pete, skill position evaluation. 2 NFL receivers last year, Breece Hall, Montgomery, 2 legitimate NFL backs, Brock Purdy, one of the top quarterbacks.
They have the other dude from, I recruited him, Kene Nwangwu, who's one of the best return men in the NFL as well, with the Jets now. And he's another guy who's a freak of an athlete. Barely played at Iowa State, but ran like a 4.2 big back and ended up now becoming a successful guy. So he knew how to recruit traits.
No doubt. And I think he's taking some of that to Penn State, which has players there. They lost a lot of guys that are following Franklin, but they still have players there, and they're going to recruit players. But I think Penn State, when I see this haul of skill position guys starting with the quarterback, I think they're going to be better than people think. Just going through some of the names, and then we'll walk through them. Rocco Becht, obviously Tampa native. We saw him in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Tough, experienced player. Going from Iowa State to Penn State, that's plug and play. He's going to be good. I think he's going to be better than any quarterback they've had in a while, just based on what he's shown on tape and how he fits. He's a tough guy. And then skill-wise, they got – I'm going to go – look, these are 3 white guys. You look at them and you say, overachievers. These guys have big-time traits, and that's what Campbell is very good about finding. I'll start with Carson Hansen, the running back out of Iowa State, Minneapolis native, 6'2", 220. This guy ran a 10.85 100-meter in high school, over 5 yards a carry in the Big 12, second team All Big 12, 952 yards on 188 carries, 96.4 yards per game in conference play. Big time back, man. I know you lose Singleton. I know you lose Katron Allen. This dude is a real player, both from a production standpoint and from a trait standpoint. I think he's going to be a star in the Big Ten. Another one, Brett Eskildson, number 9. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I just know number 9 from Dallas, Texas. True junior, 6'1", 200, a wide receiver, 10.7 100-meter. This guy was running by defenses all day. BYU, he was just flying. This guy's a legitimate speedster. I think he's going to be the best receiver Penn State's had in a while. I know Harrison Wallace had success outside of Penn State. We'll see him in the Fiesta Bowl. Pena was pretty good for them this year, but this guy's a legit burner, 17.5 yards per catch, 526 yards on just 30 catches. And then Benjamin Brommer from the Nebraska Farms, 6'7", 255 pounds.
Like this one a lot, man.
Big dude, red zone. Obviously can block. He's 255 pounds, had an injury scare, but he's all right. So he's really talented. They also got a safety, Marcus Neal from Kansas City, who's a Big 12 player on defense. So, Pete, I mean, what do you think when you see Penn State raid Iowa State and really build the nucleus of a team that's like plug and play for next year in the Big Ten?
It's going to be very interesting to see what else they do here, because Iowa State has, I think, they had a really solid foundation, but you also were depleted in terms of the high school recruiting for Penn State. And Penn State's not entire roster, but most of their top guys are either headed to Virginia Tech or, in the Chaz Coleman, for example, defensive end, he's headed elsewhere. You're losing a lot there. But I'm a Matt Campbell guy, so I fully trust what he's doing here. I think you piece together his evaluation ability and now some added resources there at Penn State. I think there'll be a really good team here moving forward. You and I are both James Franklin guys and didn't really fully understand the firing other than, hey, things had gotten completely stale and they knew that they had to move on, right? But the results were what the results were. I do think, though, Penn State is. I'm not saying they upgraded, but I think the fresh start will be really good for everyone there.
Yeah, I think that's, and we'll probably do a similar show
even for Campbell too, because he had reached the ceiling at Iowa State. So.
Totally agree. I think this is great for everybody. I think most of all, Penn State and Virginia Tech, as far as the guys they added. I think Penn State had a great coach, but certainly they've replaced him with the right guy if you're going to replace him. And then Virginia Tech benefited. And we'll do one of these shows on Virginia Tech when some of that dust settles with all their portal guys, because it's the same boat. You're basically importing a new team. But yeah, I think Penn State's going to be good this year, man. I think Beck's going to stabilize this deal. I think those guys, the skill position guys, Penn State needed more skill talent. They just not recruited well there. They had good running backs. Tight ends, they had talented guys. Receivers, not really. I think it's going to be really good for them. And quarterback, not really. So I think it's going to be a really good deal for them. I think they would be better next year than this year. By the way, like and subscribe to the show. Over 3,000 on live right now. Remember, we are going through, we've already talked a ton of Canes. We're doing this every single day until the portal's officially done and finished. We're going to go through across the country, different portal moves to keep you guys up to date. So like and subscribe if you want to care. You care about the portal, you care about college football, and you want to know what's happening. You don't have time to sift through all the millions of commitments. Tune in to Canes Insight. Not only get all the Canes news, you'll also get portal news every day. Like and subscribe. So another team that's doing this strategy of basically importing their old team with their coach, Oklahoma State. So North Texas.
Hold on a second, D. Hold on 1 second. Keep talking.
Oh, got something going on. All right. So Oklahoma State hires Eric Morris from North Texas. North Texas is a very successful program this year. Eric Morris, one of the best talent evaluators in the country, because these guys that he brought in, to me, are like a big three. So you have 11 total transfers from North Texas and counting, but 3 guys I really, really want to focus on. Obviously, Drew Mestemaker, the quarterback. There it is, baby. The Pokes.
Had to bring this out, baby. Go Pokes.
I'm excited to watch these guys. Now, they were 1-11 this year, so they got a lot of work to do. I don't know if they're going to have the same level of turnaround as I think Penn State might. But this big three, man, this is a real big three. Like, this is a real big three.
And I've seen a lot of people questioning Mestemaker's decision to follow his coach. I could not disagree more. I think My concern with Mestamaker, which I love the talent, but you drop yourself into the middle of the SEC, you drop yourself into the middle of the Big Ten. We saw what happened with Mateer this year. We saw what happened with John Mateer this year. His stock is in the drain. His injury was a part of that as well. But why not just continue with the core group, including your coach, the guy who found you and has developed you? Go put up big numbers now in the Big 12. Continue on that trajectory. Your stock will continue to rise if you stay on the same trajectory with your crew. You're going to be in the Big 12, right? You're going to be against defenses that you can throw it around the yard. If you need to make another move after next year, you go make that move. But you don't need to do that right now if you're Mestamaker.
Yeah, I mean, the Mateer comparison is interesting because Mateer also followed his offensive coordinator. In this case, Morris is the play caller. And he didn't have the offensive line in the running game that I think he needed. Now, Mestamaker, we're going to talk about the running back in a second because I think he's got an elite one. But offensive line off a 1-11 team, that would be my concern. We'll see if they can build that thing up. But in terms of the skill he's taking with him, first of all, Mestamaker himself, an NFL-type prospect down the road, did not play in high school, been well documented, was a safety and a punter, played behind two guys at quarterback, ended up redshirting and taking the world by storm as a redshirt freshman this year, 4,379 yards, 34 TDs, got size, can move, good arm. I love him talent-wise. I think he's going to kill at Oklahoma State if he can get protection. The running back, Caleb Hawkins, Texas wanted this guy. Oklahoma wanted this guy. This guy is a blue chip running back, true freshman this year, extremely productive out of Oklahoma. So he's a native son of Oklahoma. He comes back home from Shawnee, Oklahoma, I believe, near Oklahoma City. This dude is a stud, track guy, basketball player, two-way guy, one of those players that when you go back and look at why they were unranked, you say, why was this guy not a big-time recruit when you had all these athletic markers to him? 6'1", 6'2", he's a taller back. He's got size, over 200 plus, really, really productive as a freshman. I think Caleb Hawkins is going to be one of the best backs in the Big 12, future NFL guy. Monster pickup for Oklahoma State, keeping him, again, with this trio of North Texas guys, keeping them together. They're not just G5, Big 12. These guys could have gone anywhere in the country, and they're staying together here. Another one, and this guy I was not familiar with as much, but I went back and watched some of his film. I was very impressed. The wide receiver, the third part of the Big Three, Wyatt Young, Dallas, Texas, slot receiver. Third nationally with 1,264 yards receiving this year. He is extremely strong, 195 pounds, breaks a ton of tackles, 295 yards against Rice, which is a conference record for the American. This dude's a real deal dude. So you have Mestamaker, quarterback, who's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 right away. You have Caleb Hawkins, who's probably going to be the best running back in the Big 12 right away. And then Wyatt Young, he's third nationally in receiving, so he's going to come right into the Big 12 and dominate. This is as good of a Big Three as there is next year on paper, and it's amazing it's happening for a program that's 1-11. But that's what the portal does, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, we'll see what sort of – I really look more at what the NIL situation is going to be at Oklahoma State because – Gundy was very open about there not being much of a solid NIL support program there. And I don't know if that's just because they weren't believing in what Gundy was doing and if they just didn't think that he was the guy for the job in this era. But you really couldn't fire him in the beginning there because he still had, even when they had Ollie Gordon there a couple of years ago, they were in the mix there in the Big 12, right? And he was, you could argue, the numbers didn't lie in terms of his winning percentage there for so long. They were always in the mix. It always seemed like Bedlam was an opportunity at the end of the year for them to get into the Big 12 championship or something. So they were always around with him. But now I want to see what it's like when you have the new young gun that you believe in, and hopefully for my Pokes, man, they get some good funding there because I think Morris is going to be a heck of a coach.
Yeah, 918 says that they weren't paying Gundy because they wanted him out. So maybe that's why they didn't have NIL. They have a great fan base. Oklahoma State should be good. And I think what Morris is going to bring is all those guys I mentioned, Mestamaker, Young, and Hawkins. He found those guys out of high school. So he has the eye for talent. Also was involved with Ward, Mateer, and all those guys. So that's what Morris has, is that eye for talent. I think it's going to help him at Oklahoma State and finding some of these guys maybe in Texas and some of these other places that are underrated.
I want to say here, I think Damian Canes is saying T Boone Pickens, not Teron Dickens. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, he's talking
there.
about Teron Dickens for quarterback.
For quarterback, I don't know.
The
T Boone is
the
deceased,
quarterback from
so
Miami who
T
went to
Boone
Western
is no
Carolina
longer
with
with
numbers.
us. So that's what I'm saying. They got to find a new group of boosters over there.
Yeah, T Boone, RIP. Quick, like that. We went through those teams in depth because I want to just kind of set the table for what those teams are going to look like next year. We'll go through the individual action quicker, but that's because there's a lot of stuff happening. It's the beginning of the portal, so you saw a huge flurry. It's going to slow down a little bit, but I want to go through these. Brendan Sorsby, we talked about yesterday, going to Texas Tech. Super talented player, $5 million. I don't think he's Cam Ward, and I think maybe he's the gap between him and everybody else to me is too much based on how he's being treated. He had some really, really bad games last year. Really bad. He's 0-8 in the month of November. I repeat, he is 0-8 in the month of November last 2 years. So there's question marks there. It was 11-33, I want to say, against Utah. He had a really tough game. Talented, obviously, which is why all these schools are after him, why Miami was so hot on him. But I do think, and this is not sour grapes, Pete, I've said this before, like I never thought there was a gap between him and everybody else the way he was treated. But teams looked at him that way. He's being paid that way, $5 million to Texas Tech. I think it's a great fit for him. He's from Denton, Texas, which is Dallas area, just like John Mateer, actually. And Texas Tech just needs a quarterback. They sucked at quarterback. I know Morton's put up numbers, but he got exposed.
Yeah, he limited them. He
killed them. I mean, they could have beaten Oregon. I thought they held up well in every area except for quarterback. Maybe receiver, they could probably use a little more juice. But, man, I was disappointed, to say the least, with how just bad Morton's was. I think Sorsey helps him immediately in that way, can run and throw. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that one before we move on.
I think Miami swung and tried their hardest, but it was going to be very difficult to overcome the Texas Tech situation here. But, yeah, I think – I said this when he entered the portal, and people acted like I was crazy when I said it. But if Miami right then and there could have tied that one up, they would have taken it no problem. And you saw how this whole thing played out. So
yeah. So we'll see. If you want more coverage about Miami's portal quarterback stuff, we did a whole video just about that last night. That one's going crazy. We could have given you the whole game plan for Miami Ole Miss, like straight from the coach's office, and it wouldn't have got as many hits as quarterback portal news in the middle of a playoff run. So check that video out that we did yesterday on that. Moving on to Kenny Minchey, Tennessee native. He was the one that was battling CJ Carr at Notre Dame. We were doing those updates on who was winning that battle because it affected, obviously, the first game against Miami. CJ Carr wins that job, does great. He's a starter. So Kenny Minchey now moves on the portal. Pretty straightforward transfer portal deal there. And Nebraska picks him up. Makes sense. There's a guy that can run, that can throw, probably more of a thrower than a runner, has some strength to him. Nebraska, moving on from the whole Raiola experience. I don't think they should have been in that game anyways. I don't know why these teams that have no offensive line and no talent spend all their money on a high school quarterback. I think they're much better off getting a guy like Minchey with some experience. He's going to be cheaper and try to build around him.
I think they believe that if you get the quarterback, then everyone else will follow. It seems to be the other way around, though.
100%. They got to start winning, man. And Rule, I know he's got the best agent in the world for always getting his name in jobs, despite the fact he's never actually won anything. But he's a lot of pressure on Rule right now. I think Minchey was a good pickup. What do you think about that? I think it's just kind of
my thoughts is it's funny how
it makes sense.
My thoughts is it's funny how the Notre Dame quarterback situation turned out, because we were following it almost closer than Notre Dame fans to a certain degree, because we were trying to figure out who was going to start against Miami there in game one. And the reports out of camp was both of them were not doing very well. We end up seeing CJ, but we actually, a lot of the talk was, hey, Minchey probably outplayed CJ Carr, but did they make the decision to play CJ Carr because they didn't want to lose him? And, Minchey was the older guy already. And it looks like it ended up working out for both of them. CJ Carr was fantastic this year as the season went on. I think he's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in college football pretty easily next year. And Minchey now getting an opportunity to start at Nebraska. So it's funny how the narrative changed on that one, because you remember what the discourse was there. I don't even think the Notre Dame fans were all that confident.
No, it was neck and neck. And I think, look, credit to Marcus Freeman, because apparently the practice was pretty close and he just had the feeling for CJ Carr. And I mean, right away, he was great against us. So I think CJ Carr is in the conversation to be the best quarterback in the country. So no shame with Minchie getting beat out there. You look at Jalen Hurts, he got beat up by Tua, and he ended up being the better player in the long run. So he'll have a chance to prove it. I think that makes a lot of sense. Low maintenance for Nebraska. I think that's what they need. Louisville, who Miami thankfully does not play this year, I thought they made a very, very interesting pickup with Lincoln Kineholz. They'd been linked to Dylan Raiola, by the way. We talked about it from Adidas. That's not happening, obviously, as they get Lincoln Kineholz from Ohio State to start. Back up, playing behind Julian Sain, so he just needed a chance to play. This is exactly my type of quarterback, Pete, as you know. 6'2", 214 from Pierre, South Dakota. Played baseball, pitching and hitting. Played basketball, put up big numbers there. Was a quarterback and a defensive player on the football team. And you watch him play. He runs around. He's athletic. He can throw. Seen the clips from just limited action he's played. Spring games from the Army All-America game.
He played in the Cotton Bowl last year. He played in the Cotton Bowl against Missouri a couple years ago now.
I'm a big fan, bro. I love this guy. This is just my kind of guy. And I think, it's interesting because he's not like a Miller Moss that's just stand in the pocket, accurate pass. That's really more Dylan Raiola, which is why some people made that connection. This guy likes to get outside and be athletic, but Braum obviously thinks he can mold him. They'll probably help each other. I'm just glad we're not playing Louisville because this guy's really, really athletic and talented. And while we're on Louisville, Pete, Isaac Brown announced he is going back to Louisville. Makes you wonder who Texas is going to take at running back because
I said it the other day, man. Texas has been mentioned for 4 big-time running backs here now at this point.
And they haven't gotten one yet, so we'll see. But Caleb Hawkins goes to Oklahoma State, stays with his coach. He would have been a great fit at Texas. Isaac Brown stays at Louisville. So we'll see what Texas does. They still get Jada Bob from Florida. But I think as an ACC fan, and the fact that we don't have Louisville on the schedule, so it's easier to say this, I'm glad the ACC's getting players like this because they got so bled out by the portal last year. It hurt the conference's esteem, I think. Didn't help Miami win because we lost 2 games in the ACC and beat everybody else. But, it's not good when your conference is just bleeding out players constantly. And I think it's good to see a big-time player like this stay in the ACC. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think not only him, but Braum in general. As someone in the comments here said, El Rico, I see it the opposite way. He says when Braum's name was being brought up for coaching jobs, I was hoping he took anything outside of the ACC because he's the only coach that scares me as a Miami fan. He's a great coach. I'm glad he stayed. I am because I think he keeps that program competitive as like a 9 type of 10 maybe in a really good season. We've seen them be in the mix here a couple times with Braum for the ACC. So I think with him, and he's an alum, he played there. So very strong of them to keep him here. I think the Michigan job was the one that was Michigan and Penn State were both being mentioned there for him. And I think he would have done well at either spot. But I'm going to go on the opposite there of El Rico. I like that he stayed for the sake of the ACC.
Yeah. I forgot about Braum staying, right? That's probably the most important. So good offseason for Louisville. Let's see if they keep more of their team together. I know they already lost that Watts kid, a linebacker, who's the guy that got the great interception on Beck. Probably the best play I saw all year. That first interception when the linebacker got so deep and picked it off on that bomb to Tony.
So, yeah, that was sick.
Yeah. So he's in the portal. So we'll see how that whole thing shakes out there. But very excited to watch Lincoln Kineholz. Just my type of guy, multi-sport kid from South Dakota that can play ball. Colton Joseph, quarterback from Old Dominion, goes to Wisconsin. Newport Beach, California kid. He's been all over the country, right? From California, then goes to Virginia and Old Dominion, now at the Midwest and Wisconsin. There was some FSU buzz with him. That died out pretty quick. 6'2", 200. Threw for over 2,000 and ran for 1,000 last year in 2025. Made some great throws against Virginia Tech in a win. Also had a long touchdown run against Indiana, which I think put him on the map. So this is a guy who's shown flashes in the Big Ten, now goes into the Big Ten. Wisconsin's kind of a mess right now, so he's going to have a chance to show what he can do, but I don't know how much help he's going to get, but he can certainly run and throw. Interesting guy there. Another Big Ten pickup, Caden Hauser from East Carolina. This is a guy who signed with Michigan State, then goes down to East Carolina. Is a 4-star player from California, kind of like Colton Joseph. California guys going to the East Coast and then to the Midwest. So they're parallels in that way. Wisconsin's quarterback, Colton Joseph, and now Illinois' quarterback, Caden Hauser. But Caden Hauser signed with Michigan State from California, 4-star player, big recruit for Michigan State, then transfers to East Carolina to play, does well running and throwing, and now is coming back to the Big Ten. And it shows you, Pete, like signing high school quarterbacks. Michigan State probably had to work real hard to get Hauser as a 4-star out of high school from California. And they get him, doesn't do anything, goes somewhere else. And then when he does come back as an actual good quarterback, it's to another Big Ten school. It's not to you. So it's like, which Big Ten school made out better here? Illinois signing Hauser out of East Carolina, where you already know what you're going to get, or Michigan State signing him as a highly recruited player out of California who didn't do anything for you.
Yeah, and Illinois is an interesting program here, D. I mean, a quiet 9 wins. They were a top 15, top 20 type of team before the season, right? So there was a lot of expectations about them. They kept it at status quo. And winning 9 games in the Big Ten that's a good season, right? So I think this is continue to stabilize, and they've been recruiting well at the high school level, right? They put some good resources in at the high school level as well. So Brett Bielema, you understand what he's going to do and how he wants to build the program and that vision. I like the pickup.
Yep. And good. They're playing well, man. By the way, big article came out in the Athletic about the SEC where coaches are saying, and Bielema was one of the coaches on records of Bielema. I always mess up his pronunciation. He was on record just talking about how the SEC is not the same now that everybody can pay players. We've always said that. That was something we talked about, but now Bruce Feldman's writing articles with coaches on the record and off the record saying, yeah, watch the playoffs. The SEC slipped. And I think NIL is the big reason.
He's a funny guy because he was in the mix there in the SEC.
Well, that's what you're saying. So he knew both sides of it. So he kind of said it that way, but a lot of coaches saying,
I love how he acts like, I wasn't doing it.
Well, he was saying more like, I'm beating Alabama for recruits at Illinois now. And a year ago, 5 years ago, that would have been a joke. This is basically what he said.
Yeah, I get it.
He
makes it seems like people forget he was in the SEC and he was a part of the problem. Is what I'm saying.
He was a dirty dog. If he had more money, he'd be doing more. But now everybody's got money, so you get players like Caden Hauser going to Illinois. You could pick up for them. I'll finish here with Ole Miss because we're playing Ole Miss. 2 guys going to the defensive backfield. Jake Crawford, really good outside corner from Auburn. Probably one of the best outside corners on the market. There's a freshman All-America last year. Then this year was really, really good. Probably their best corner. Proven, plays outside, 11 pass breakups over 2 years, 2 INTs. Just really solid player. He's going to help Ole Miss right away. Ole Miss continue to kind of work their portal style. And they also got Sharif Denson and nickel, who's been linked to Miami. I know you have something to say about that, so I'll kick it to you with that. But Sharif Denson, the nickel, who Miami recruited out of high school, goes to Florida. Really, really good against the run, really good in the box, not so good in coverage, but was linked to Miami. I'm not sure how real that was, and now is going to Ole Miss. So thoughts on Denson or whatever you want to go here.
Well, I like the player. I think this happened with a couple prospects over the weekend, D, and as I pull up the Denson commitment here, we were getting comments about the same thing with the Pitt linebacker, Rasheem Biles, and kind of questions as to there were initial reports that they'd be visiting Miami. And from what I understand, right when those reports both came out, I checked with Miami and they said, these guys aren't scheduled to visit Miami. What's happening here? There are agent games being played, D. But with a Biles, I'm not saying he couldn't visit Miami still down the line, but like with Denson here, you have a situation where it was said, he's expected to visit multiple schools. Miami right away. So, this guy's not scheduled to visit here. So what does that tell you? It tells you agents are throwing Miami's name in the mix. I'm not saying there weren't discussions that were potentially had, right? You have to, if you're Miami, do your digging, talk to the agents, see what's going on here, and trying to figure out, hey, what's the number going to be? What other programs are in the mix? You try to figure out, is this a guy that is the number going to make sense? Is it a player that we really value? Is it someone that we need? Are there other guys that we see that we have a better chance with? But if the agent's just going to throw the name out there, it's probably going to scare the other school into saying, we need to get this deal done before he gets to Miami's campus. That's what's happening here with a lot of these reports that are out there. And I'm not blaming I'm not blaming the people reporting it, right? I have a lot of respect for the people who are reporting a lot of this stuff. I'm just saying what's happening is agents are using Miami's name to up the price. And this isn't a Miami exclusive issue. It happens other places too. But there are certain guys that visits have been reported as scheduled. Same thing with the Gardner Webb, defensive end who's where's he at in Kentucky?
Yeah.
I don't know that these guys were top-level targets for Miami at this stage, other than discussions potentially being had. So that's my view on it from Miami's point of view.
Yeah, I think Sharif Denson, very good against the run. Similar to Keontae Scott in that way. Not as good, but similar. But then the coverage, I think, speed, not the same when you talk about him replacing a Keontae Scott potentially. So that's your portal route, man. Let us know, guys, if you enjoyed that. We're going to keep doing it. It's not going to be as packed as it's been the past couple days, just because there's a lot going on. But we'll be covering it, man. This is going to telling you when we do this every day. If you listen every day, like and subscribe to the show, you'll see when the season starts, you're going to be like, hey, I remember that. I know what's happening here. It's invaluable to understanding college football in 2026 because the movement is so widespread. It's so critical, and it's hard to keep track of.
Look at this comment here. We got D.
Shout out to
Grandpa Jim.
I love
morning, guys. Go get Riley Williams back.
We need some size at tight end. We need some size on that perimeter. Luka Gilbert will help, but we need more guys with some size on the perimeter. I think perimeter running took a step back this year because of not only because of this, but because in part the lack of length and power on the edge with some of the guys like Cam McCormick and some of the blockers that we had, and of course Riley Williams. Real quick, Pete, one more thing I want to talk about. But before I do that, I want to shout out East Las Canarias, #1 Cuban restaurant on the planet. 7 different types of croquetas, rocking and rolling since 1977. Gubaritos, Cuban sandwiches, salads. You even got the Canos there, which are Venezuelan, but they're an incredible treat. You got desserts, you got shakes, you got all kinds of things at East Las Canarias Cuban Express, right there at Dayland Mall Dining Pavilion, #1 Cuban restaurant on the planet. And of course, get your gear, get ready for the Fiesta Bowl or celebrate the Cotton Bowl, celebrate the win over Texas A&M, whatever you want to celebrate. You got to commemorate this. It goes fast. Commemorate it at the Miami Hurricane Team Store, MiamiHTS.com. Cotton Bowl champion shirts. Those are hot. Got a ton of other great items there. As you see, just scroll down. Insight 20 promo code will get you 20% off your first item. This is at MiamiHTS.com or in the store located right across the street from the University of Miami. So, Pete, before we leave, I had to get to this because this was a very big topic in the chat, and it was a comment from Ole Miss, one of their wide receivers. And I'll play it for you. Well, actually, you know what? Let me make sure I do this right. Okay, I'm going to be a good producer. But share with the volume on. Let me know if you guys hear it. And let's see what he said. When asked, when opposing teams have a really good defensive line like Miami, does that change the types of routes you run? Here's what he said.
I wouldn't really say it'll really affect our whole route tree just because we do a lot of quick game, deep balls, and we got a great O-line that'll hold up and protect, so it don't really change a lot.
You know, I don't think that's that controversial, to be honest with you. I think, you know.
I think the same. I don't know what else he's supposed to say. What is he supposed to say? Yeah, they have an amazing D-line. We're in trouble.
And he's right, though. I mean, you know, like we talked about on the show, that they do things to counter the D-line and their offensive line as his teammates. Of course, they're going to pick him up. But, you know, Miami doesn't need that much motivation. They play with such an edge.
This is great. Castellano Music says this is diet bulletin board material, not full bulletin board material.
But you know what, though? They don't need much. They don't need much. They're just so naturally edgy, particularly on the defensive front, that I'm not sure they need that much to get rowdy. So hopefully this helps. I hope stuff like this, and then also like Trinidad Chambliss. You know, I would play all of this if I was the Turan Terrier Cam Gorby and his team. Man, find all the clips of ESPN, CBS, whoever talking about Trinidad Chambliss, how great he is, and just cut it up and run it on loop. You know, because I know one thing you see with this defense is they love kind of ending the narrative on players. And Jeremiah Love, right there at the beginning of the year, and it's been on since then. I think Trinidad Chambliss, even though he's not a talker, just the amount of talk that there is about him hopefully motivates this defense to, you know, not shut him up because he's not a talker, but to shut up the media about, hey, how great this guy is. He's not as good as us. That could be an angle for a team that you're just looking for any edge you can find. They don't need much, but they need nice to give them something to get them ready for this game because they're a favorite for the first time in this tournament, and you want to see that same violence. And you heard that on all the cinematic recaps and all the post-game snaps and stuff or Instagrams. Like, these guys remember the comments. That's the first thing they say. Like, who's talking now, right? Keontae Scott talking on the internet, you know, show up in the building, whatever he was saying. They're always focused on that. So That's where their minds are. I hope someone slips up. Keep giving these guys microphones. Someone's got to slip up soon. But that one, diet trash talk, I would say.
Yeah, I think Trey Zune, as Castaneda Music said in the comments, it was the facial expression. It was the smirk he gave when he said that one. That was tough to swallow if you're a Canes fan. And then Ohio State, I mean, I think the motivation was itself, the defending national champs and all of that, being 9.5 point underdogs. So
that's the Keontae Scott line. Talking on the net, show up in the building. Yeah, Trey Zune, that was great. It was so bad that Texas A&M fans after the game were hating him. I mean, he was getting slayed on the message boards. Imagine being like an All-America type player. You've been there 4 years, and because you say something stupid with a smug look and give up, your team gives up 7 sacks and you get smoked on offense, your fans turn against you. Not a very good way to end your career. But listen, that's what he gets. He was talking. I agree. The smug look, he was talking. This other guy was pretty classy. I mean, he kind of just said the truth. They have a plan to deal with this defensive line. In fact, that was the actual question. They were like, "What kind of routes do you run?" He's like, "Well, we run deep. We do the quick passes." It's true, because even their deep passes, P, when you watch, a lot of it is like, let's say the corner plays real tight to avoid the quick game. As far as the short passes, Chandler will just catch the ball and just chuck it down the sideline, like quick, like boom, in and out. And then the receiver runs under it. So even their deep game is very much quick oriented, as opposed to Ohio State, which taking their time, let Jeremiah get down the field, run his post and put it on him. There's much more like, hey, get rid of it quick, let you run under it, because they know that they don't have the best offensive line in the country in terms of NFL guys. Texas A&M did. Miami obviously does. Ohio State more than Ole Miss, but they had the system to counteract that. And that's the key to this game, is how much Ole Miss's offensive system and execution can neutralize what Miami does so well on the defensive side of the ball.
No doubt. So good show today, D. Almost 2 hours here. We're going to be keeping this thing rolling all week, probably doing double duty. I am going to have, and obviously if you're available for this one, join in. But Malik Rozier, former Canes quarterback, this afternoon at 3:00. Going to have a show with him this afternoon. So be on the lookout for that one, Canes fans. We'll get, D and I do what we can on the X's and O's, but always a little bit better to have someone who played the position I know is dialed into this matchup right now. So excited for that.
Absolutely. 3,400 on. Like and subscribe to the channel. See you later. Go Canes.
Go Canes.